Every scene needs an icon, but for it to really thrive, as we all know, it needs more than one, and deathcore is no exception. It's no secret that the vocalist is usually the face of the band, and vocals in general are often the main attraction. So when you think about it, if deathcore is still around today, it's mostly due to the hype created by all those amazing frontmen over the years. Don't get me wrong, obviously the rest of the band is just as important, but in this video, let's take a moment and focus on the vocalists specifically. From their live performance to their look, their personality, their stage presence, and their influence in the scene, it's my honor to present the most influential deathcore vocalists of all time. Whether you want to admit it or not, without Mitch Lucker, we wouldn't have the deathcore scene we have today. It's as simple as that. From the moment he stepped on stage, everything changed. He just had a presence and an aura that was so scary and menacing that you had no other choice but to watch and be captivated by him. His iconic high-pitched vocals were crazier than anything anyone had ever heard before. The contrast between the highs and the lows really created a new level of anger and aggressivity. All of that was very impressive in itself, but believe me when I say, the live performances were what created his reputation. Back in the days, when people were mentioning Suicide Silence, they couldn't help but talk about their shows and how crazy it was. Sure, it wasn't only about Mitch, I mean, the entire band was incredible, but he was the highlight, and for good reason. Believe it or not, all of this was happening as early as 2004-2005, but to be fair, I wouldn't say he was an icon yet. Don't get me wrong, as I said, he had a very strong reputation in the scene and he was already very beloved, but when Suicide Silence officially released The Cleansing, everything changed. That's the moment when Mitch Lucker officially became the face of deathcore. And it wasn't only about the music, it was everything. His look, his personality, his stage presence, and of course, his iconic high-pitched vocals. Let's take a moment and really dive into it. First, I know it might sound superficial, but in the music industry, looks matter a lot, and Mitch Lucker had the absolute perfect image to represent deathcore. Everybody wanted to look just like him, and to this day, if you see someone covered in tattoos wearing skinny jeans, I'd say there's a good 95% chance it came from Mitch.
Mitch influenced the way I looked, man. He influenced the way I looked. I'll say it right here now. Stretch my ears. I had the faux hawk for a while. I had the shaved head for a while. A lot of it was because of Mitch. Like, it shaped me.
On top of that, him fronting real death metal guys was the absolute perfect aesthetic in my opinion, and I gotta say, his style was very tasteful. It was never too flashy or weird, he was just 100% badass and charming. Suicide Silence blew up right at the peak of the MySpace era, and with Mitch being the face of the band, they were unstoppable. I mean, I'm not saying he was the only reason for their success, but let's be honest. Of course he was a major part of it. Not only did he have the look, but he also had the personality, being known as a very kind and charismatic individual, treating everybody with love and respect. I mean, in his position, tons of people would have been arrogant and full of themselves, but not Mitch. He chose to be the exact opposite of that, which I think contributed a lot to his image and legacy. Obviously, he was also an incredibly talented vocalist, and as I've mentioned earlier, Mitch Lucker had the absolute best high-pitched vocals in the game, and it wasn't even close. Of course, that doesn't mean his low growls weren't good or anything. All his vocals were great, but the high-pitched vocals were his specialty, if you will. Now, let's be honest. It's almost impossible to talk about Mitch Lucker and not mention his insane stage presence and all his iconic moves. He basically created the template for all the other vocalists, but the bar was so high that no one was ever able to do it as well as he did, unfortunately.
He will be the greatest of all time, like just solely just of his presence. His presence was just, you felt, you're just like, he was what I was talking about earlier, like intimidation. Like he was intimidating.
As for his lyrical content, it was always very real and honest, but what I think was even cooler was his perspective on how the fans were connecting and relating to it.
Even if you interpret it differently and you hear the meaning from me, then keep that meaning to yourself because it means something to you, and that's all music is. If it means something to you, then it's real shit, no matter what it means, positive, negative, any type of emotion you feel. If you get that emotion from one of my songs and it's different from my actual meaning, then hold that because that means something to you. Let that song mean something to you. I have songs like that that's like, it means something completely different than what the song's fucking about to me. But that's what my brain latched on. What's my brain has like found positive in the song, and I think that's awesome when people do that.
He never wanted to sound like any other vocalist or any other band, and to this day, when you hear Mitch on a track, you know it's him instantly.
Every record we put out, there's so many bands that try to imitate it or emulate it. Every time you put in a Suicide Silence record, 1, 2, or 3, after 10 seconds, you immediately know, oh, that's Suicide Silence.
Mitch Lucker and Suicide Silence took deathcore to the mainstream in a way no one thought was even possible, and I think us, as a community, we owe a lot to them. Mitch was so much more than a vocalist. He was a visionary and he was constantly pushing things forward more than anyone. Suicide Silence was always 10 steps ahead, and even more so with the Black Crown. He just saw how new metal would make a comeback, and let's be honest, it's probably bigger now than it ever was. I mean, tell me one deathcore band who wouldn't want to get a Korn feature on their album. Tragically, we lost him in 2012 and the deathcore scene was never the same, but his legacy will live on forever. I said it before and I'll say it again, Mitch Lucker will always be the greatest. Oli Sykes deserves a lot of credit for putting deathcore on the map. When Bring Me the Horizon released Count Your Blessings, not only was it introducing tons of new people to the deathcore scene, but they also gave it a brand new image. You see, Oli and the rest of the band didn't look like classic metalheads at all, especially compared to other deathcore bands during that specific period of time. I mean, just by looking at them, you would think they were into bands like Alasana and Bless the Fall, right out of their emo phase in high school. Which might seem irrelevant in the context of this video, but trust me, back then it was a game changer. I know it might sound silly, but their look was actually a big reason why so many of us related to their music, and it was also the main reason why the death metal scene hated them so much. You have to understand, Oli Sykes was the very first deathcore vocalist to ever become an icon, and with the rise of MySpace, he pretty much instantly became a rock star, which is exactly what you need, especially in an upcoming scene like deathcore. Not to mention, Drop Dead, his clothing line, which was by far the biggest brand during that era, he would later heavily influence the scene fashion and establish himself as a leader in that field. With all that being said, there was another very important thing. His vocals were absolutely insane. Not only that, but he was also an amazing frontman. His stage presence was extremely good and their shows were always fun, which I believe also contributed in making them way more popular. the band quickly moved away from deathcore with their second album, but Oli and Bring Me the Horizon still had a major impact in the deathcore scene, and to this day, as we all know, tons of people wish they would go back to that sound. Phil Bozeman was and still is one of the best deathcore vocalists of all time. Just for context, from the very beginning, as early as 2006, Whitechapel already had reached legendary status. In fact, so much so that even their demos were getting popular. And I mean, Phil himself already had quite the reputation already, especially after the release of the Somatic Defilement, in which he refined his vocal style and focused way more on his low gutturals. It was clearly the right move to make, especially given the fact that he became famous mostly because of it. I mean, let's be honest, every single vocalist in the scene wanted to sound just like him.
Welcome to hell! I take a for an example of ever let the light brighten on his flesh!
And as much as the Somatic Defilement had an impact, Whitechapel really officially blew up back when they released This Is Exile. It truly was surreal. I mean, the hype they got on MySpace made them almost as big as Suicide Silence, and Phil himself became pretty much instantly one of the most popular vocalists in the scene. It was very simple. Mitch Lucker had the best high-pitched vocals, and Phil Bozeman had the best low gutturals. Despite Phil being extremely introverted and kind of shy in general, he officially started his very own YouTube channel called PhillyBo1985, on which he would give vocal tutorials, play Call of Duty, and vlog. It was a great thing for the fans, especially considering the MySpace era was over during that period of time. I don't think people realize just how much he did for the deathcore scene. He never quit, even back when things were falling apart. As I said many times over the years, I mostly attribute the deathcore scene's downfall to Mitch's passing, and as difficult as the situation itself was, Phil's performance at the memorial show has to be one of the most iconic live performances of all time.
I woke up in my hotel room after not sleeping, and then I had like a panic attack. I was on 2 hours of sleep with this.
Despite him trying a lot of different vocal styles and new directions over time, he always managed to stay relevant, and even to this day, I mean, with their last album, Whitechapel has to be one of the biggest deathcore bands ever. One thing's for sure, Phil Bozeman will always be a legend. What Alex Koehler did with Chelsea Grin during the MySpace era will forever be super iconic. You see, since the band was founded in 2008, Alex had a couple years to get inspiration from other deathcore bands like Suicide Silence and Jump for a Cowboy, resulting in a mix of a lot of different vocal styles. Alex Koehler obviously also had the look with the scene hair, the stretched ears, and the skinny jeans. Chelsea Grin got popular very quickly due to their incredible live performances and their synchronized headbanging at the time. On top of that, Alex's vocals were absolutely insane. However, their debut EP would be the only record featuring in-hell vocals, because when they released Desolation of Eden a couple of years later, all the vocals, including the lows, were all XLs. In fact, it wouldn't be the last time Alex would try a new vocal technique, since, as we all know, the band would constantly evolve and try new directions over time. Unfortunately, he had to part ways with Chelsea Grin since he was dealing with addiction problems and personal issues, but his impact in the deathcore scene was massive and he still inspires a lot of people today. He's now doing music again with Pablo and Jake in his new band called Ameona. I mean, it's a very different style, but it's pretty cool. It's just overall very wholesome. He's doing great and he's sober now. He's also streaming on Twitch and he's doing vocal coaching. Nothing but love for Alex. With only one EP, Johnny Davy and Job for a Cowboy changed deathcore forever. In fact, the Doom EP is still regarded as one of the best deathcore releases of all time. The music itself was already very popular on MySpace, but it was nothing compared to when they released this video. The band blew up instantly, and just for context, it was before social media, and a clip going viral wasn't even a thing yet. So for a band as heavy as Jump for a Cowboy to have that much attention, it meant something special was going on. Johnny Davy became an icon, and he was known for his iconic pig squeals for the most part, on top of being an incredible performer. I mean, the entire band was just going crazy back then. Unfortunately, as we all know, the Doom EP would remain the only deathcore release of their entire career, despite the very high demand and a lot of their fans constantly asking for more. Don't get me wrong, their debut album, Genesis, was very good and is still considered top tier by most people, but it was their official departure from deathcore. No more pig squeals, no more breakdowns. I mean, by that time, they had officially established themselves as a death metal band. That being said, Johnny is still considered to be one of the best vocalists, and he's still very influential in the deathcore scene, which is why it was so important for me to include him in the video. Whether you like all their albums or just the EP, what really matters here is that Johnny Davy had a major impact on deathcore. xTheYan Lewis has to be one of the most underrated vocalists. First things first, Dead in My Arms is an absolute classic and a big reason why Carnifex blew up so much on MySpace back in the days. Scott's vocals were powerful and angry, especially his lows, which were very brutal death metal sounding. His high-pitched vocals were mostly inspired by black metal. Speaking of which, black metal would later become more and more a part of their identity as a band over the years, both aesthetically and musically. In terms of look and physical appearance, I always thought Scott looked super badass. I mean, he's tall and jacked, covered in tattoos on top of being an amazing frontman. Musically, I wouldn't say he changed his vocal style a lot until now, but he was always very consistent. However, the band stayed underground for the most part of their career until a couple of years ago when deathcore officially came back. That's when Scott and Carnifex finally got the recognition they always deserved. These guys are as real as it gets. They never stopped touring, even back when deathcore was at an all-time low. They kept pushing, playing breakdowns, and going as hard as they could. It's very respectable, I think.
It's this really interesting combination of artistry and adventure, because it's like you got to do all your art, but you got to do it in a different place every single day, and you got to get there, and it's all on you. Have fun. And it's like, damn, that's an adventure. Like, we got a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, I really realized, like, man, it's not just being a musician, it's being a touring musician that's really where I thrive.
It's also very important to mention how Scott has always been a great guy who supports upcoming bands and artists in the scene. He doesn't have to do that. He's doing all of it for the love, which I think is really awesome. All in all, xTheYan Lewis is a legend. In case you don't remember, or maybe some of you watching are just too young, I'm here to show you how incredible Ricky Hoover and Suffocate truly were during the MySpace era. Unfortunately, the band never really blew up, even if Ricky himself was getting more and more popular. I mean, for context, he had by far the biggest stretch ears in the scene, he was super tall and covered in tattoos with a shaved head, so yeah, to say he stood out would be a pretty big understatement. Obviously, it wasn't the only reason why Ricky was getting popular. His vocals on No Mercy Nor Forgiveness were excellent, and to this day, still holds up in my opinion. However, he did change his vocal style a bit on their third album, Return to Despair, on which the biggest difference would be the improvement of his high-pitched vocals. Was going pretty well until Ricky decided to officially quit the band to become a barber instead. As devastating as it was, he actually seemed happier. He then started his fitness journey and got absolutely jacked. I mean, he pretty much looks like the beast who killed the old version of Ricky. And then, despite him saying he would never do deathcore music again, a couple of years ago, surprisingly, he did come back with a new band called Of Sulfur. Obviously, it's a very different kind of deathcore, with all the black metal influences, the orchestral settings, and the clean singing.
I was like, so what do you want to do? And he was like, I want to do black and deathcore, kind of like his favorite band is like Lorna Shore, and like he loved
Shadow,
and
Lord
Shadow
Shore.
of Intent. He was like,
Yeah.
I'm in love
At
with
that
those
point,
bands.
I was really into those bands at that point.
Oh, yeah.
It was fucking like they blew my mind.
Yeah,
They are fucking insane. They are insane.
they're nuts, and they're the best in the genre.
I don't know, I'm just glad that he's back. I mean, Of Sulfur is doing very well, Ricky is a dad, and I'm pretty sure he's still a barber. It's super wholesome, and I'm excited to see what he's gonna do next. Adam Warren and Oceano completely changed the game when they released the District of Misery video. It was by far the heaviest thing anyone had ever heard before, and Adam's vocals were so different and unique, it just sounded meaner and angrier. But it wasn't just the video. The entire Depths album represented a new era, a heavier form of deathcore, and everybody was on board with it. The amount of hype they got on MySpace was unreal. I mean, Oceano made the best possible entrance in the scene, and Adam instantly positioned himself as being one of the best deathcore vocalists. Then the band just kept progressing and evolving over time, resulting in many different musical directions, which, to Adam's credit, was always very well done, thanks to his constant evolution on each album. Even though there was a big hype around them, it was never enough to make them become quite as big as bands like Whitechapel or Suicide Silence. Oceano is just one of those bands that stayed underground their entire career, but it doesn't change the fact that Adam still had a very big influence within the deathcore scene. It's so unfortunate that the band is breaking up and how Adam is quitting music in such a negative way, but at least on the bright side, he seems to have found a new passion. Nonetheless, no matter what, Adam Warren will always be one of the most influential deathcore vocalists. Brook Reeves is a legend for many reasons, but the main one might be the fact that he's always been the most influential Christian deathcore vocalist. Because believe me, as cool as it was to be a Christian metalcore band during the MySpace era, being a Christian deathcore band wasn't cool at all. And I'm not trying to insult anyone by saying that, it's really just how it was. I mean, look at the aesthetic and imagery back then, not to mention the lyrical content. Pretty much every single deathcore band had at least one song against religion and God. So for Brook to stand strong and stick to his values in such an environment says a lot about his courage and character. Not only that, but he was always respectful with his peers, and the fact that every single band loved touring with Impending Doom says a lot, I think. That being said, let's be honest, none of this would matter if the music itself wasn't any good, but in this case, dear God, was it incredible. The release of Knell Dead Risen made Impending Doom one of the most popular bands in the scene, and for good reason, because it might be one of the best deathcore releases of all time. Whether you were against Christian deathcore or not, you still couldn't deny just how great this was. The band became an exception to the rule, and believe it or not, they were very quickly accepted in the scene, which was quite a big statement in itself. Speaking of which, as we all know, in order to succeed in any capacity, you need a moment, something that grabs people's attention, and for Impending Doom, it was this. The power of those lyrics in such a heavy part really had an impact, and to this day is still considered a very iconic moment. Just like that, Impending Doom was now twice as big as they were. Brook became one of the most popular vocalists in the scene as well, and for good reason. I mean, he was always very talented on top of being funny and charismatic.
I didn't even know what impending meant until a couple of years ago.
However, he did change his vocal styles a bit over the years, and by that, I mean, no more inhales. Sure, it almost sounded like a different band, but the fact that Impending Doom always managed to stay relevant is quite impressive, and if you ask me, Brook Reeves is always going to be an important part of deathcore history. Let's start by saying that Eddie has been part of not one, but two of the most iconic deathcore bands, All Shall Perish and Suicide Silence. Needless to say, he's a big part of the scene, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for his work. I mean, All Shall Perish might be one of the most underappreciated bands out there, and just to give you an idea of how early they started, they originally formed the band with members of Antagony. Not only that, but I'm pretty sure they were one of the first deathcore bands to bring the At the Gates riffs into deathcore, and mind you, deathcore wasn't even a thing yet. Eddie has always been a very versatile vocalist who uses a lot of different techniques in a tasteful way, from the pig squeals to the high-pitched vocals, and of course his signature lows. He's a big part of the reason why The Price of Existence was a success, on top of being a very good performer. Then they released a few other albums during the MySpace era, but they never really blew up. All Shall Perish is another band that should have been way bigger, but somehow always stayed underground, which doesn't negate the impact they had, but is still unfortunate, I think. After the tragic loss of Mitch Lucker, Eddie officially joined Suicide Silence as their new vocalist, which was obviously very controversial since he was replacing the greatest deathcore vocalist of all time. You just cannot win in that situation. I mean, whether you like Eddie or not, you have to respect his courage, because most of us cannot even imagine how difficult it was for him at the time. He received so much hate ever since, and I'm pretty sure he still does, which really sucks, but you know what? He's always been very respectful and mindful of Mitch's legacy, and he's having a blast with his friends, playing amazing shows, so in the end, he's winning in my book. I mean, sure, over the years, Suicide Silence tried new directions musically, and some of them might have been questionable, I'll give you that, but I don't think it's fair to blame Eddie for everything. They were just trying new things as they were grieving together, which is very understandable when you think about it. Plus, on their more recent material, they went back to a heavier sound, and they seem to have gained a lot of new fans, which wasn't an easy thing to do in their position. All Shall Perish is now back as well, which is amazing. All in all, I'm very grateful for his contribution in the scene. Without Dickie Allen, we probably wouldn't even have goblin vocals and modern deathcore, let's be honest. Sure, he technically didn't create it, we'd have to give this one to Travis from Cattle Decapitation, pretty sure most people would agree on that. But the point is, he clearly made it his own and exposed millions of people to it while bringing a brand new vocal style in the deathcore scene. Infant Annihilator is honestly one of the best deathcore bands in my opinion, and even if the Dan Watson era was incredible, Dickie Allen really solidified the identity of the project and completed the lineup perfectly, making the band twice as popular as a result. Not to mention, his low gutturals are out of this world. And despite the band never playing live, he did, however, played a lot of shows with his other band. Not only is he a great performer, but he's also a super cool dude, very down to earth, and he's just the type of person you'd have a blast drinking a beer with, you know?
Few things I do is I don't do anything but drink and smoke beer, smoke and drink beer and smoke weed and beer. I do those things a lot.
I mean, how can you not like this guy? He's awesome, and he's easily one of the most influential deathcore vocalists. It would be impossible for me to make this video without mentioning Tom Barber. I mean, he's been part of so many things that I don't even know where to start. First, I sincerely believe most of his work with Lorna Shore is severely underrated, especially on that EP. But beyond that, the fact that he was fully committed since 2009 and stayed in Lorna Shore for years, even though they were still very underground at the time, says a lot about his character and passion, I think. It's also more than fair to give him at least some credit for where Lorna is now. I'm sure the rest of the band would say the same. After that, as we all know, he officially joined Chelsea Grin, and they've been more popular than ever since. I would be lying if I said it was my personal favorite era of the band, but I can easily recognize the impact and the talent Tom was bringing in Chelsea Grin. Not only were his vocals great on the new material, but he was also absolutely killing it every time they would perform the old songs. Then, like if it wasn't enough, he's also part of Darko, one of the craziest deathcore projects ever created. His ability to create such a unique sound and style in an oversaturated market says a lot about his talent, I think. I hope you understand how rare it is for someone to kill it on every single level. I mean, his lyrical content is brilliant, his vocals are incredible, on top of being a very good performer. That's pretty much as good as it gets. Tom Barber is exactly where he belongs, and I'm fully convinced he'll just keep surprising us in the future. Big Chocolate has always been an icon in the deathcore scene, there's no denying that. His solo project, Disfiguring the Goddess, is peak MySpace era music. The raw DIY production with the brutal slam vocals were everything we wanted at the time. He made like 1 billion songs over the years and they're pretty much all insane. Before you freak out, yes, obviously, I'm gonna mention the most iconic thing Big Chocolate ever did, I Declare Goddess.
Smell that? Oh, shit.
I don't think you realize how much this video blew up back in the days. It was probably the most viral content ever since Entombment of a Machine was released, and it's now considered a deathcore classic. Not only was it iconic because it was featuring both Big Chocolate and Jonathan Huber, the legendary vocalist from I Declare War, but also because in terms of vocals, it was crazier than anything we had heard before. All these over-the-top gutturals over a never-ending breakdown were actually extremely good. We felt like it was a perfect match, even though ironically, they were doing it as a joke.
It was so like happy-go-lucky the whole time, and then the video got so popular. And this was like before the kind of the current era where if you have something that goes popular, you're like, yes. But at the time we were like,
almost didn't even mean anything. Yeah.
Bro, we hated it. No, we hated it. Yeah, we were not happy about it.
Another reason why Big Chocolate is considered a legend is because of his YouTube channel called Cam Everyday, on which he was vlogging every single day, a very cool concept that was very ahead of its time if you ask me. Mitch Lucker is actually featured in a lot of his videos because they were friends, and I mean, he was filming every single day, so He's also doing milk reviews. Basically, he's drinking milk and reviewing it on cam, which somehow is very on brand for him.
I'm like living life right now.
He's just one of the funniest, weirdest, coolest dudes ever, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for everything he's accomplished over the years. Alex Terrible is one of the most popular and influential vocalists, and he's a big reason why deathcore is as big as it is now. But he actually got popular way before being in Slaughter to Prevail, back when he was doing vocal covers on YouTube. The power in his voice was so incredible that people were wondering how it was even humanly possible to do that as a vocalist. Slaughter to Prevail blew up pretty much instantly, and they got signed by Sumerian right after releasing their first EP. But the thing I really wanted to mention about their early days was the fact that Alex would do a lot of amazing high-pitched vocals. I don't know, am I crazy? I don't think he's doing those anymore. But I digress. As much as they were mostly known because of Alex Terrible in the beginning, after releasing their debut album Misery Sermon, they were also known to be a sick, groovy deathcore band with nu metal elements because they had done it in a way that was never really done before. It was their sound, their thing, and they became huge in the deathcore scene, but it wasn't until a few years ago that they got their moment and absolutely went viral. This was the real game changer for them. Demolisher blew up on TikTok, and as you can probably guess, it was all over the reaction channels, obviously. Alex Terrible instantly became an icon, but he didn't stop there. He made himself even more popular, if you can believe it, simply by being crazy. I mean, the dude is living and breathing metal at this point. His entire lifestyle is just pure brutality. It's insane.
It's not about only music, but it's about what stand behind the music, like people.
Yes.
Like what they believe in, how they live, what they do in their life and all this shit, you know?
As for the live performances, I mean... You have to understand, no one is getting as popular as they did without an incredible amount of talent, and Slaughter to Prevail might be the closest thing we have to Slipknot in the deathcore scene. The stage presence, the mask, the nu metal elements, and the overall vibes of violence and destruction really contributed to their success, in my opinion. They actually kind of became a gateway band over time, which is essential for a scene in order to stay relevant and appeal to a new generation. Also, before freaking out, yes, I'm aware that Alex is controversial as a person and tons of people hate him, but please keep in mind, this video is about the most influential deathcore vocalist of all time, and it would make zero sense for me to not include him in this one. So with all due respect, whether you like him or not isn't really relevant in this case. His talent and influence are just undeniable. Last but not least, the one and only Will Ramos. Objectively, by far, the most popular and influential deathcore vocalist of all time. I mean, he did so many things, I don't even know where to start. I guess we'll talk about the fact that he's been in the game for a while now, since, as you probably know, he was in other bands prior to Lorna Shore, the most popular one being Awake in Providence. He was also already doing vocal covers on YouTube at the time, including Cesspool of Ignorance by Signs of the Swarm, which is pretty ironic since he would later be replacing CJ. Speaking of which, joining Lorna Shore was a very big milestone for him, I'm sure you can imagine. I mean, the band was getting more and more popular at the time, but obviously it was nothing compared to this. And just like that, everything changed. That's obviously the reason why deathcore came back and is now more popular than ever, and to think that all it took was a moment, exactly like the Entombment of a Machine video, except this time it was even more popular with social media and all the exposure. I mean, with all the reaction channels blowing up during that specific era, I'm sure you can imagine how perfect the timing was for them to have such a viral moment. The amazing thing was that you didn't have to be into metal or deathcore at all. It was so extreme and over the top that people could just share the moment itself with their friends without any context whatsoever. It also gave the vocal tutorial channels a lot of exposure since everybody was trying to figure out how Will was even able to make such a sound in the first place. Of course, it also triggered all the gatekeepers, saying Dickie Allen technically did the Goblin vocals first, even though Will gave him full credit like a million times already. And if you really think that Will is successful only because of To the Hellfire, you're gravely mistaken. He's where he is now because he's been at it for years, and when he finally got his moment, he was ready for it. I mean, I don't think you understand the amount of talents he really has. His technical abilities are out of this world and every single performance is flawless and effortless. On top of that, his lyrical content is top tier, same goes for the live performances, absolutely outstanding.
We are Lorna Shore.
The best part is that he's not gatekeeping anything. He's super open about his vocal routine and all the different techniques he's using. Will is just a very likable guy. I mean, I don't know him personally, but you can tell he's a good person.
How did you become a cat father? I love cats. Period. Next. If you know also anything about me, you know I love ramen. I love it so much. When I'm on tour, that is pretty much all I eat.
Obviously, he also has the look with the tattoos, the stretched ears, and his very unique hairstyle.
I have had way too many hairstyles, so I had like a 2, a 1, and a 2 on my head. That was it, forever. Then I started straightening my hair because I was in high school. I was like, yo, I'm so hard, I'm so seen, bro. It looked terrible. And then eventually I grew it out and I let the curls go. I was like, this is cool. Went afro mode for a little while, decided to shave the sides, keep the scene kid giant bang, and that's basically how I got here, you know? It's just the evolution of the scene kid haircut.
I also love how proud he is of his relationship and how he always seems happy to include his girlfriend in what he does. During Hellfest this year, he even sang her name as he was performing Dancing Like Flames. I don't know, as a hopeless romantic myself, I thought it was a pretty cool thing to do. Wait, am I still emo? Maybe. Anyway, who cares? Another very cool thing about Will is the fact that he's really into drifting and GDM culture, which is awesome. I mean, again, how can you even hate this guy? Come on. I know, people will always find a way to hate. Welcome to the internet, I guess. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I'll just end by saying that Will is one of the most, if not the most, influential deathcore vocalists of all time. Now it's your turn. I want to know who's your favorite vocalist, who do you think should have been included in the video, or maybe you can just tell me how wrong I am. I'm totally fine with it. To be honest, I'm just grateful that anybody at all even cares about what I do and watches my content. Speaking of which, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. If you want to support me to a higher level, my Patreon is the best way to do it. Thanks to all of you who already did, you're the best. We also have a Discord server and a live deathcore podcast on Twitch every single week. One last thing. If you miss the MySpace era as much as I do, there's a platform called Space Hey on which you can create your profile, use HTML codes, banners, all of that. I really had fun making my own profile, so feel free to add me on there. But for now, I'm finally gonna stop talking. I'll see you in the next one.